Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session. I am Leah Adomavan, a tax consultant with Deloitte. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this webinar on AI-powered customs valuation. As we all know, customs valuation is central to international trade. It's also very important for the mobilization of revenue by the government and for business compliance in general. But as trade becomes more digital, our traditional methods of custom assessment becomes very complex. In view of this, we have brought in experts from the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, from industry, and in-house experts to discuss the publican AI valuation system. Before we start, I would like to take a few moments to run through some housekeeping rules. The webinar is expected to last for 2 hours. During this period, kindly ensure that your mobile phones and any other electronic devices are placed on silent to minimize distractions and feedback. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We will have a final Q&A session to address all questions. Kindly note that this session is being recorded for educational and knowledge sharing purposes. At this moment, I would like to invite our host for today, who is in the person of Gideon IEO, our partner for tax and regulatory services, to give us the welcome address. Gideon, your audience are ready to hear you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leah. And it's a very good morning to all our distinguished guests, colleagues, reps from GRA Customs, industry leaders, and members of the business community. So today's discussion is coming at a very important time. Trade has become increasingly digital. We've seen supply chains become more complex, easily affected by geopolitical issues. And then we have the customs administration they are expected to strike a balance between trade facilitation, revenue assurance, and compliance. And then we're having this discussion under the shadows of a new customs bill passed by Parliament, awaiting signature by the President. And this also coming to change the customs environment. And so in addition to all the things I've mentioned, it's coming to increase the revenue assurance, accepting a more digitization of the processing, AI use in it, and also codifying some of this things such as the national single window mechanism. In view of all this, businesses are expected to remain compliant and making sure that business continues and grows as usual with regards to all this digitization and digital issues coming up. And so for us here today, we want to have this conversation today talking about the customs valuation, artificial intelligence, general risk management, and under this new customs framework. So we want to be shifting more from how quickly can we clear our goods to making sure that we are compliant. How long are you keeping your documentation? And when GRA comes back 3 or 4 years later after you've cleared your goods, would you be able to answer the questions that they'll be raising and asking you? So this is the position we are coming from. And then we are hoping that today's discussion will highlight some of these things. As mentioned earlier, we have various perspectives that we want to share from the business community itself. We also have the GRA reps here as well with us, who would also give us further general guidance into our discussions today. So I am looking forward to a very robust, interesting discussions. We hope to answer most or many of your questions as much as possible. So please, you can start typing them on, and then we'll answer them towards the end of the day. Thank you very much. Direct tax leader for Deloitte Africa, Olep, to take over. Olep, your audience.
Thank you, Gideon. I hope that everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great stuff. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As Gideon said, I've had the privilege of practicing customs and excise and remember in the formative years of my career as a consultant was pretty much within this particular space of customs valuation. As you're going to pick up from conversations today, the colleagues on the call, and hopefully through the conversation that I'm about to have with you, that the confusion that might have been caused either because of the new legislation, previous experience, or around customs, a particular shipment's value. It does not necessarily end at the port. And then you're looking at things like cash flow disruption. Your inventory might be delayed at the port, your penalties. You might also have your lender audit. In general, you'll find that there's a tension between the customs authority as well as business. So it is indeed an area where one needs to tread carefully and make sure that they are prepared if a dispute is to rise. But hopefully, today's conversation will result in a situation where we've got minimal disputes. But as with anything, there will always be disputes that one can expect. So for many companies, a customs valuation is not merely a compliance issue. It is a business issue. And there, as I said, two stakeholders generally. There's the government on the one side that has a legitimate interest to protect revenue. And there's got also an obligation to ensure that the trade is fair. And then there's predictable treatment for legitimate trade. And then the flip side of that, they need to also make sure that they support efficient supply chains, investment, as well as economic growth. When it works, this topic of customs valuation, it creates confidence for investors because the rules are very clear. Customs knows that it can collect the correct revenue, and trade typically flows quite position itself to manage the valuation risk quite effectively. So I think Martin at the later stage of this webinar is going to talk to the 6 different valuation methods. It's going to deep dive into technicalities and the intricacies of customs valuation. But I'm going to touch very high level on the topic so that we don't talk to the same issues, me and him. But the one thing that I'm going to talk to, or the one aspect of its conversation that I'm going to talk to is around the 6 valuation methods. That the primary method of valuation is called the transaction value. And by the transaction value, they mean the transaction relating to the actual shipment that is touching the waters, coming into Ghana. And as most of you will be aware, the regulations and the rules follow the structure and the framework that's been set by the WTO Customs Valuation Agreement that dictates the 6 valuation methods, and that they have to be applied in strict hierarchical order. But the primary method, as I said, is the transaction value. What is the transaction value, you'd ask? It is the actual price that was paid or is payable. And the reason why there's a payable component to this and is in recognition of the fact that there are payment terms sometimes where you are given 6 months to pay, 12 months, or 18 months to pay. So the price that would be payable in the 18 months would then be regarded as your transaction value. But as I said, it's only a starting point, right? The arrival at a value that would then be considered as the legitimate customs value for purposes of customs clearance, but is subject to other terms and conditions, if I can call them that. You will see when you study the legislation that it talks about certain additions that must be made to the price paid or payable, or certain deductions. The obvious one that you would typically see being used as a deduction is one that talks to buying commissions, where you've got a person or an entity, say in China, who helps you source and identify suppliers. And for that type of service, you're paying a buying commission to that person, because you don't have a presence in China, as an example, and you want that person to use their intelligence, their local nature, to be able to identify those opportunities for you. That's on this one side. But on the other side, there is the obligation for you to add, and some of those additions will be your other commissions, not buying commissions, your assists, your royalties, your license fees, your backing costs, and relevant transportation and insurance cost are some of the typical ones that you'll see, whether you're in Ghana or everywhere else in the world. But really, the objective really behind this is not to get to a price that is the lowest or the highest. The ultimate objective is that the price, the value that is legal, that is legitimate and can be supported commercially, is one that we all want to arrive at, whether you're sitting on the side of the customs authority or the client, right? So that is the crux. That is what's at the heart of every valuation conversation. What is the legitimate price? Do we want to make sure the customs authority collects what is due to it without having business paying a cent more than what is required? But what I have seen over the years, and in conversations with my colleagues in Ghana, what we've seen, because I mean, the reality of the matter is that the people who are within a customs authority, some of them have been born and bred in that environment, right? They haven't worked for a corporate. They don't have a sense around how a price is arrived at, and et cetera, et cetera. So the intricacies that goes with being a business, some of our colleagues in the customs authorities don't have that benefit. And as a result, you can understand how difficult it is to try and assess whether a price is a legitimate price or not. And therefore, there's practical things that they would implement to try and help them assess whether a price is arm's length, so to speak. One of them would be benchmark values that would then be implemented, or a reference price. I understand that in our environment, for purpose of this conversation, public and AI tool will then be used. And really the idea behind this type of tools is to say, because I'm not in commerce, I'm sitting in government, how do I then enable myself, equip myself to be able to assess, to identify maybe at a distance, whether there's a risk to this transaction or not, right? In East Africa, I remember back in the day when I was still in the customs authority, they sent a team to East Asia to go and research that market. There's specific industries that I wanted to focus on, clothing and textile and a few others. And the idea was for them to build this engine so that they are able to support and assess whether a transaction is reasonable or not. And that aligns with conversations similar to the public and AI tool that we have, that we know that the Ghana Revenue Authority has indeed implemented. And as I said, it's intended as a risk management tool linked to prevailing prices in the market. And it's not supposed to be the be all and end all. But it's supposed to assist the government in trying to get to what is a reasonable price. And sometimes a price might look very low, but there might be commercially sound reasons why that price is low. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I see that I'm being chastised for being slow, but I'll try and wrap it up as quickly as I can. I'll give you a couple of examples as to why a price might be low. I might have bought bulk. There might be long-term supply contracts, seasonal promotions, clearance and liquidation sales, market entry strategies, a genuine supply discount, etc. That might dictate why a particular price is the manner that is seemingly low. Shipment price might be legitimate. Maybe let me quickly then turn into what type of strategies should we be implementing to make sure that we're able to defend a price, a value for purposes of customs valuation assessment. And I'll just quickly run through it in the next 2 or so minutes, and then I'll hand over to my colleague Martin to take it over. So best practice is not for you to wait for the customs authority to come to you. The best practice is to prepare a file in anticipation that one day a customs authority will come knocking. One, it will be in situations where you are a related party importer, or you've got things like royalties, etc., that are payable as part of the transaction. So you need to maintain a complete valuation file. You need to make sure that you've got purchase orders, contracts, commercial invoices, proof of payment, etc. That are the minimum requirements from a document perspective that you need to have. You need to make sure that you understand the commercial transaction and that it reconciles and how it reconciled to a customs declaration. Very important, because you need to explain it to somebody who's not in your business to make sure that it makes sense to them. In instances where you are a related party, you also need to make sure that there isn't going to be an argument that says your relationship has influenced the price between the two of you. Because remember, it can be, for related parties, easy because there are other ways in which a price, money can be expatriated that sometimes is not related to the goods. All cases around valuation must be treated as evidence cases. And we must also implement valuation controls before the clearance takes place. So in anticipation of a possible query from the customs authority. I'm going to leave you with a final thought in respecting time. So a best valuation system is one that protects revenue without penalizing legitimate trade from a government perspective. Best case for importers is not to wait for a query. You must make your valuation position understandable, auditable, and defensible before the goods arrive. And that is the only way you're going to be able to successfully defend a position. When public AI is being used to question as an initial risk assessment tool, do not panic. If you've got a valuation framework that works, you shouldn't panic. You have the evidence to support it. Follow your dispute resolution processes to get to a resolution that works not only for yourself, but for government. Because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that government collects revenue that's due to it, because there's a responsibility to look after the people, build hospitals, schools, and all of that. On the flip side of that, we need to make sure that industry is not unfairly treated from a valuation perspective, because such a treatment might impact on the margins and therefore their competitiveness in the market. Thank you, and apologies for taking longer than I could have. I'll stick around and add to the conversations when the panel sits and converse some more. Thank you. I suppose at this point I need to hand over to Martin.
Thank you. Thank you, Oleb.
Hello. Yes, my name is Martin, and I'm a senior revenue officer with the Ghana Revenue Authority. As you all heard, the keynote speaker touched on most of the issues that concerns valuation. So this morning, I just want us to quickly run through the process of valuation before Publican, because we've been doing valuation before Publican was added. So if you listen carefully to the keynote speaker, you heard him mention the customs valuation agreement, and then the GATT article, which is the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, Article 7. So valuation normally revolves around Article 7, which talks about the custom valuation agreement. And so, as you can see from the slides, customs value should be based on the actual value of imported goods, not arbitrary or fictitious value. So if you heard the keynote speaker, he touched on the transaction value being the ultimate, because as much as possible, customs must use the transaction value. Then the other point is that the system promotes fairness, uniformity, neutrality in customs valuation. So what the agreement seeks to do is to promote neutrality and fairness and uniformity in the valuation process. It's also a basis in the transaction value, the price actually paid or payable, subject to specified adjustment. Also, if you heard the keynote speaker, he touched on adjustments such as assist, such as buying commission, such as discounts. So all this forms parts of the transaction value. Then, where transaction value cannot be used, alternative methods are applied in prescribed sequence. So once your transaction value is not or was not accepted, then there's a need to use other valuation methods. So in using the other valuation methods, we must bear in mind these core principles, which has been outlined in the Article 7 of the Customs Valuation Agreement. So we have principles like actual value. So as much as possible, customs must try and use the actual value. We must not use arbitrary values. So maybe the valuation officer will just go to the net and then Google the item, and then any price that he sees, he just applies it. No, that is not what the agreement is saying, or that is not part of the core principles. And then when valuing too, we have to take notice of commercial reality. We are also to be very transparent in our rules. So if you look at these core principles, it tells you that the valuation is not done anyhow, but it is done in a more professional way. As Ghana is a signatory to the agreement, we go by these principles. Next slide. And so the whole truth is that, like the keynote speaker stressed on, he stressed on the fact that as much as possible, the transaction value is to use the other, but the first one is the transaction value. Like I'm saying, it is very, very necessary that as much as possible, we use the transaction value, not valuing the goods. So per customs assessment, if we find out that your transaction value is not acceptable, then we move to method 2, which is a value for identical goods. And mind you, this method must follow in sequential order. So we cannot jump from 1 to 3, or we cannot jump from 1 to 4. So we must move in that sequential order. So when we move from 1, if you are not able to accept your transaction value, we go to identical goods. If we are still not able to get a value, then we move to a transaction value of similar goods. From similar goods, if you are not able to determine your value, we move to the deductive method. The next, which is the fourth method on the road. And then from there, if you are still not able to get a value, we move to method 5, which is the computed method. Then if still we are unable to get a value, we move to the fallback method. Well, the fallback method is not actually a method, but what it seeks to tell us is that if you go through method 1 to 5 and you still are not able to come to a value, then you go back to the other methods and relax the rules there to be able to get a value. So let's say the method 3, if we are looking at goods which are from the same country, within 3 months, and we are not able to get a value, and then method 6 is we have to relax that rule by maybe extending it to maybe 6 months. So the method 6 is just telling us that you go back and relax the other rules so that you'll be able to get a value for the consignment. And so after going through all this, customs arrives at a value for the consignment. Now, it doesn't end there. As you all are aware, I want to liken this to a court situation. When you go to court and then your verdict is given and you are not happy, the next thing for you to do is to appeal. Same applies to the valuation process. And so after the assessment has been given, the importer or the agent will look at the value given. If he or she is not satisfied with the value given, that person, the agent or the importer, has the right to appeal. And so the appeal process is also part of the valuation. And like I'm likening it to the court process. You see, the issue at appeals is that we will need evidence. So the name of the game at appeals is evidence. Then it means that you have to prove to customs that indeed the amount you are quoting or the value you are quoting is your transaction value. And so at that point, we require documents such as your bank transfer or bank remittances or bank payment. We will ask for your contract from the supplier. We will also ask for contracts. We ask for export document. So if you are able to provide any of these documents, we are able to accept your transaction value. So I'm just trying to inform you that once the value is given, it doesn't end there. The appeal process is also there to assist you to have a second look at your values. And so now these are all processes that we were doing before publican came. And so now that publican has come, I want to stress the fact that publican has not come to change anything. If anything, publican has come to adapt to the tools that we have been using. As the keynote speaker was speaking, he made mention of RPL, that is the reference price list. He make mention of benchmark values. He make mention of TPD, what we call the TPD. And so these are all tools that we were using for the evaluation prior to the arrival of publican. And so I'm here to tell you this morning that publican has now come to adapt to the tools that we were using. The reference price list is just like the keynote speaker said, it's just a risk management tool. It doesn't mean that we use it's cast in iron and that it cannot be changed. But once you go through the appeal process and you provide further and better evidence to support the claim of your transaction value, we review it. So this morning, I'll just take us through how publican works so that we'll have an insight into it. So publican, like I said, is just an added tool. Publican AI is just an added tool that has been added to the evaluation system. And what publican does is that it's how AI works. It's able to search prices, it's able to do analysis, and then give the officer the opportunity to use a value that is most suitable. And so I'm saying that publican is not doing evaluation. At the end of it, what publican does is that it only gives the officer the needed resources to be able to arrive at a value. And so after publican has done its work, then the onus lies on the officer to apply the value. So the officer, we use tools like the benchmark We use the RPL, we use our TPD, and then Publican has come to us, so we use Publican as well to arrive at the needed duty. So maybe we ask, what is the Publican AI and its benefits to customers? So Publican also, it's just a software. Yes, so it's the software enhances faster clearance for compliant traders. And so, as you all are aware, AI can search the web in just a matter of seconds. So it will just search and give us global trends, global values, so that we'll just do our comparison to arrive at our value. So the clearance chain will now be faster with the introduction of Publican. It gives accurate duty assessment. Now that we are all using the Publican, there's accuracy in our assessment because each and every valuation officer relies on Publican. And as you are all aware, AI is same across board. And so it gives the accuracy in our assessment. It has improved our revenue mobilization as it has enhanced, as it has been like an added tool. This AI is adding up to our assessment of the consignment. So it has improved our revenue mobilization. It has reduced delays as well. As you are all aware, it can search the word in seconds. And so by that, we are able to arrive at a decision quickly. So one will ask, how does it work? The Publican AI works by analyzing documents such as manifest, invoices, and trade data. It supports pre-clearance checks, clearance at the port, and post-clearance audit. As you are all aware, the clearance process is in three. We have the clearance itself there. We have pre-clearance, and that is the process before the consignment arrives. Then there's the clearance, the process we go through after the consignment itself has arrived at the port. And then there is post-clearance. That is the processes we go after the consignment has been taken away by the importer. We will still go to the importer to seek further interpretation if the need be. And so the public has come to more or less to be an added tool. At the end of the day, the onus of the valuation itself is done by the custom officer. The custom officer hasn't been taken away from the valuation process. And so, as you all are aware, the Publican we went live on the 1st of February 2025, and those of you who are in the business will now attest to the fact that now things have stabilized and things are moving well now. And so we look at valuation and Publican AI. And the processing delays are largely transactional. So as you are all aware, the implementation of every program or every program, yes, has its own issue. And so as you are all aware, we've been able to manage the situation, and now things have stabilized. So things are moving steadily with the processing. Then one will ask, why has public appeals process become longer and cumbersome? Well, initially, most people, when the Publican AI came, most people didn't understand how it worked. And so as time went on, there were trainings and this thing. So the importers are now abreast with the issue. So they can attest that now the system is working smoothly. And the other question is, why are some valuations significantly higher than expected market values? So, like the keynote speaker said, there are tools that we use. And so we treat every transaction on its own merit. And so, like I said, the evaluation process doesn't end when the value is the assessment is given. It also moves to the appeal stage. So if your value is significantly higher, you can then resort to the appeal process. What I can tell stakeholders is that the AI has come to stay. It has come to make work easier for us. And then we should all embrace it so that we can all work for the betterment of Mother Ghana. Thank you. So this is just a a short diagram of how the publican works. So the evaluation of the publican it has not come to replace ICOMs or customs house agents. Updates to reflect change in trade policies. The publican has no additional fees or fees for traders or agents. It has a secure encrypted data protection. And so our data and the data of our stakeholders are all safe. So in conclusion, I will say that the publican AI has come. The publican AI has come to add up to our tools to help us in the appeal, to help us do our evaluation and do it properly. So this is as I mentioned earlier, this is the appeal process. So after the evaluation has been done and the importer or the agent is not satisfied with the values given, one has the chance to appeal. And these are the documents that is needed. You might need a bank transfer or payment records, which is verifiable. Then we demand export document from country of export. We demand sales contracts or commercial agreements and any other relevant document that will substantiate the importer's claim. And so the appeal process demands that you provide further and better evidence for your transaction value to be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. That was power-packed, and it set a good tone for the panel discussion. But before we start, for the benefit of those who just joined, please note that the session is being recorded for knowledge sharing purposes on our Deloitte YouTube channel. We entreat that your mobile devices are placed on silent to minimize distractions and feedback. Also note that we will have a Q&A session to address all questions that may come up during the panel discussions. You may as well drop your questions in the chat box. Our panel discussion will be led by Joachim Owusu-Efriye. He is a senior manager with us here at Deloitte for the Tax and Regulatory Service line. Moving on to the introduction of our panelists. The first on the list is Gideon Ayowu, our seasoned Tax and Regulatory Service line partner with over 16 years experience. Our second panelist is in the person of Junior Peter Bafuboni, a senior revenue officer with the customs divisions of the Ghana Revenue Authority. He has years of experience in valuation and risk assessment. Followed by our very own Richard Kwenu, who is a senior with the International Affairs and Development Unit at Deloitte. He has years of experience in the use of artificial intelligence. And finally, we have Andrew Eyubi, an industry player in customs, and currently the territory manager at WAY. Please join me in giving a warm virtual welcome to our panelists. I'll hand over to our moderator, Joachim, to take it up from here.
All right, thank you.
You can take over.
Thank you, Leah. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone joining us today. I think we've heard a lot from our keynote speaker and Martin, technical presenter from GRA, on the intricacies of custom valuation, what was happening before introduction of publican AI, and what the publican AI has come to do. He also emphasized on the opportunity for appeal, so that if you feel the valuations determined with the help of publican AI is not what you expect, you don't just accept it. The opportunity for you to appeal, and in your appeal, make certain documentations available to support your appeal. So, gentlemen, thanks for being part of the panel discussion. If you may, please put on your video. I will just take a brief comment from each one of you on the presentation so far, from Eleb Technical keynote speaker and Martin from GRE. I'll start with Gideon. Your initial thoughts of the presentation so far.
Okay, thank you very much. I think my takeaway from that is the publican AI is not coming to replace any system. It's coming to add to the judgment. So essentially, you still have human beings there and making sure that the AI doesn't set up things that are not accurate, but the human beings are there to ensure that the judgment is aided with the technical assistance to get it right. And that's one of the things I'm getting. And also another point I also want to raise is if the revenue authority is being increasingly data driven as it is now, taxpayers also they don't have to sit and operate as they have done in the past, but also have to make sure that they themselves, their systems are updated, and where they have opportunity to use AI, they try as much as possible to assist them to do their work so that it prevents a lot of misclassification and other valuation issues. They have to be ahead of the GRE. They don't have to be behind the GRE in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you, Gideon. That's quite a summary. Richard, your comments?
Okay, so I believe that it's been a very insightful presentation. Myself, I learned a lot from how customs was operating in the past, and it's nice to see that they are also digitizing. And I believe that in this world, you can either be a leader or a reactor, and GRA is taking the step to lead with regards to this field of valuation. And I like the fact that he also mentioned that it's not here to take people's jobs because that is what most people fear, but it's also serving as a tool to help improve the way that they work and collect revenue and such. So I believe it was an insightful presentation, and I believe there's a lot more we have to discuss during the next session of the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. Peter, your comments from the revenue side.
Okay, thank you very much. I would just want to add to the publican AI and what Martin was talking about the AI. The publican is here to stay. We just rolled it out in February, so we are some months into it. But with time, it's going to help us build a database. Okay, we are going to have data of past declarations. We're going to have payment, inspection results, audit reports, and all those that we are going to put together. That's going to enhance our work, and it's also going to make trade very, 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 very fast. So what I'm taking from this is that for compliance traders, this is good news because trade is going to be fast. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter. I will turn to Andrew. Andrew from industry. You represent all importers. What's your take on the presentation so far?
Thanks, Joachim. My initial thoughts, it's actually to give credit to the time and effort the presenters have actually put in sharing this insightful information. It's never easy rolling out such new implementations, and in industry, change is always something difficult. I've come to understand and learn quite very important bits around what the presenters have shared. And going back to Ole's comments there, as much as our speed to market is guaranteed with this new AI tool, publican AI, and not making it more burdensome for the industry player or the market, the more we tend to embrace this, the more we tend to welcome it. And we will be the ambassadors for actually driving this and then promoting it and making it very successful. I think we are still at the data collection stage. I could notice from Peter's comment. We look forward to having the full-fledged implementation done so we can have the maximum benefits from this tool being rolled out at our various ports. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your initial thoughts. So we zoom now straight into the panel discussion. So we've designed it in 3 segments. First segment is on the case of AI in custom valuation. We take brief comment on that. Then we look at the risk, governance, and legal considerations. It's a key area people are much concerned with. We take the expert views on that, and we look forward. Future readiness. Ghana has implemented. What are other African countries are doing? What advice can we give to both sides? GRA, importers, consultants, specialists in the area that can help fine-tune the system so that it works for the betterment of all. So Richard, I'll start with you. The publican AI, as we have heard, is a technological tool which is built around AI model to try to understand how trade behaves, value declared in various jurisdictions. So from your perspective, what are the key technological and implementation considerations organizations like GRA should have evaluated in deploying the AI from a customer perspective? I know you have studied the publican AI through your research. I just want you to end with your view around the expectation of how this publican AI aligns with your technical expectation around building and
All right,
implementation
thank
of
you.
AI tools.
So I would say that the one thing, or there are a number of considerations to consider, but the first thing that comes to mind with regards to adopting technology is first off how it actually fits into the organization's goal, right? Ultimately, technology comes to help us reach our goals, right? So with regards to the Ghana Revenue Authority, as part of their objective is to enhance revenue mobilization, and also with regards to customs, facilitate trade, right? And I believe that the publican AI has come to speed up the rate at which trade is being done, because there may be so many delays in the past because large volumes of trade come in and customs have to deal with it. And then I believe that publican AI comes to assist them, minimize the amount of time and effort that is used in assessing trade declarations. Also, the ethical and responsible use of AI. There is a framework that I believe that organizations such as GRA should take into consideration. The first, with regards to the framework, we can talk about the data quality, right? So AI is largely dependent on data. Okay, and there's a say, garbage in, garbage out. And so if the data that is being used to feed these models is not complete, accurate enough, it's also going to affect the output. So I believe that specific information with regards to risk assessment and the kind of historical data that comes in with regards to imports. So when it comes to imports, we have data such as the globally accepted HS code, the country of origin that imports is coming from, the shipments, and other historical and global trade data. All these things must be fed into the the publican AI system to assist it be able to also assist the customs officers make the final decision. Also, it must be explainable and very transparent. One, so that the customs officers can continuously monitor it and easily identify instances of bias. And also, it also helps maintain accountability, right? The publican AI is coming to assist the customs officer, right? But ultimately, the final decision lies with the customs officer. So accountability is key, and also continuous monitoring, because AI can be trained on data, but then as business progresses, there's always new information being generated, new trades coming up. And so there's the need for continuous monitoring to upgrade and update the tool with new trade data that comes, and also any form of biases that may arise. So I believe that these ethical and responsible use of AI considerations, as well as how it fits into the ultimate objective, are considerations that the organization must, think about.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard, for that comment. So, you see, the discussion around the publican AI has been around valuation. As a technology expert, developing AI models and helping with implementation for large global organizations, do you see any opportunities for the usage of publican AI beyond valuation? For example, fraud detection, classification, audit readiness, post-clearance audit. Do you think that the publican AI can be developed to the extent that it can achieve some of these benefits?
Yes, I believe so, because I mean it's already being trained on large volumes of information, right? And this same information is already being used to assess risk with regards to custom valuation. And so similarly, depending on I believe that one of the panelists mentioned earlier on in his introduction that there's going to be a database, right? So once this database can be connected to the Publican AI, and this can easily aid in fraud detection depending on how much information can be gotten, right? Because ultimately it's dependent on the amount of data and the quality of data that you have. So I believe that it's not too far off from that. We are just a step away from making use of the Publican AI for several different purposes that would assist the Ghana Revenue Authority, facilitate trade and mobilize revenue. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. Peter, I'll come to you on from the revenue side. So, and we've heard some good news, very good news from the Minister for Finance, Commissioner General for GNRA, praising how the publican is helping with the valuation, of course, raking in a bit more more revenue from the time of implementation. And we all know that before Publican AI, there were challenges with the traditional approach of valuation. Martin mentioned some of them. Of course, an officer with the aid of some systems, which is still quite more manual, have to scan through a lot of systems, documentations, just for the purpose of valuation. So there were issues around undervaluation, misclassification. If trade volumes are high, it's difficult for an officer with just an eye to identify some of these things. So you from the revenue side, how that the Publican AI helps customs authorities and traders address these challenges and improve valuation accuracy and compliance?
Okay, thank you. When you were making your remarks, you talked about some of the problems that we used to face before Publican came. Yes, we have the issues with under-invoicing and the rest, but we also have issues with consistency. Okay, and two officers looking at the same invoice can value an item and comes out with different values. Okay, that does not ensure fairness. Okay, and that causes a lot of confusions at the port. There is also the issue of data that we also had to rely on with our reference price system that had to be updated regularly, but it's a little bit outdated. So mostly we have to rely on invoice values. So from our research, you can see that we have about 90% of the valuation is under transaction value. Okay, so that is also a challenge that we have. And with the introduction of the Publican AI, you know what AI does? AI combines speed and data, and it can give us real-time market prices, past declaration history, supply data in seconds, and suggest the value. So with the introduction of the AI, we are seeing a whole lot of changes. The issue of consistency and fairness, with time, we are going to clean the system and we are going to have streamlined values. So we're going to get consistent values that we are also going to be using. And also in terms of smart targeting, okay, the AI does a whole lot of work in terms of its analysis. So we don't spend a lot of time on compliant trade, and we have enough time to focus on the restricted ones, on the non-compliant ones, which is a few, which we have to focus our energy on. So with the introduction of the Publican AI, I see a whole lot of positives. From the reading of the budget, you can see that our revenue has really gone up as compared to last year. So we are hopeful, and let's see how it goes through the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for your comments. And Gideon, I'll come to you. In your initial comments, I get a sense you're already looking to the future, advising businesses to rethink how they view the whole custom processes. Traditionally it has been, it's just an operational issue. Once goods are clear from the port, that's the end of the story. You just get your goods in your warehouse, you sell it, you can go home and enjoy your profit. But with the introduction of AI, I know a lot of questions have been asked about the legal basis for it. Of course, you mentioned earlier, custom has also issued now. There's a new law that is coming. The bill has been passed. It's just awaiting assent. Considering your experience in the system, your understanding of the new framework, how will you advise businesses to rethink customs risk and how the Publican AI helps strengthen compliance, transparency, and audit readiness for businesses? Gideon's muted. Gideon, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joachim. I think what we are asking our clients now to think of customs is to not restrict it, as you said, not just at the port. It's been stated over and over again. It has a very broad impact on the business, not just an operational that a logistics person clears and is done. However, customs goes beyond just the clearance. It has effect on the related party transactions. It can have effect on your VAT that you are going to charge. Eventually, it can even have an effect on your corporate income taxes. So just one area, usually businesses are thinking of VAT, withholding tax, CIT, and then they've just pushed the customs. It's been cleared by the customs agent and they are fine. We want them to think of it also as a reputational issue. You can outsource the clearing process to a customs broker or an agent. However, you cannot outsource the risk. The risk still sits with you. So you still need to maintain oversight over the customs area. Don't think that the customs agent has done it and therefore it's fine. Sometimes you meet taxpayers and they don't even know where the documentation is, or they don't have clear oversight of it. Still maintain oversight of it. Bring it in-house. Custom is also one area that you see various aspects of a business having touches on it. So it starts from the logistics person who clears it. There's a finance person who records and pays it. There's a tax compliance person and a supply chain issue. It goes across all these areas. Sometimes, because of this, it creates a governance issue. Who is fully accountable in the business? Because these various entities are touching it, there is no one person who takes full responsibility if something goes on. So this also has to be looked at. Is there one person that we could go to and making sure that there is an alignment across the business in terms of the valuation, in terms of the business amount being recorded? And I've seen a situation where you have the logistics supply chain person having a different record of it or amount being recorded. Meanwhile, the finance in-house person and the transfer pricing have totally also recorded another one. If you do this, it's a clear red flag issue, and you have GRA raising it up. You might have an audit, and when you have an audit, you have a clear issue. So my ask now is that we have to start thinking of it as an operational issue as well as a governance issue, and making sure there's an alignment across the firm and the whole business having a one front with regards to customs. Thank you.
Thank you, Gideon. So Gideon, I stay on you on the new customs framework, the new customs bill.
Yeah.
You will see that now the GRA has made it clear on their reliance on AI. In fact, in the new bill, they've gone ahead to legislate the use of artificial intelligence. So based on this, what would be your advice to businesses in terms of your approach? Do you advise businesses to also invest in similar system that can also track their trade and all that?
Yeah, and I want to tie this one up to what the GRA senior official shared earlier. And so that means
You are good. You are good. You are good. It's good.
Gideon's off.
I think it's...
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gideon can hear you.
okay. So what I was saying was that I would like to tie this up with what the GRA official shared earlier. In that the system now is able to track and raise issues around inconsistency, for example. So if you're a company and you're importing the same goods, but previously maybe use a different broker or use a different agent, and month A, the same goods, you use a different HS code. Second month, another person goes and use a different. Clearly, you are going to it's going to be flagged, and you have an issue. It might delay the process. And as we know, if you are in a manufacturing, you are in a mining service, you have a deadline to meet, and you because of misclassification or over reliance on somebody else, and you are not using the tech internally yourself, you are going to create an issue for yourself. So as well as GRA is using it, businesses also have to be up to date. They have to be on top of issues. Pattern AI is going to look at the patterns and see where the goods are coming from, the declaration. You also have to make sure that you are right, spot on, and you're doing the right things so that you don't have delays at the port when it's coming up. Businesses have to really, really be very much on top, whether whichever ERP you are using in-house, and making sure that your ERP, if it has access to AI, it should be able to flag up some of these things. If it doesn't have access to it, well, you can do your internal reviews and making sure that whenever the duty or whoever initial pre-clearance forms they are doing, you do the right thing so that you don't end up having delays in-house.
All right, thank you very much, Gideon. So Andrew, I'll come to you. You are the importer for all the good things that we heard from the presentation. Comment from Gideon, comment from Richard, technology expert, and from Peter. I know you appreciate with me the previous approach of declaration without the AI, was saddled with a lot of issues. Delay was one of the big headaches for importers. Businesses with strict timelines, urgent need for delivery of their product, face some of these things. Now, since the implementation of Republican AI, what changes have you seen in decision making and risk management, interactions with customs authorities?
Thanks once again, Joachim. And rightly so, the previous, processes was saddled with a couple of challenges, admittedly, and mainly border around valuation. The mention of consistency is what really sinks down, to this discussion when it comes to the importer, where different people at different times and different moods, different times of the day, apply different rates to the same classification of goods. I mean, no business would encourage that or would be happy about that. Coming to the issue around the AI and publican AI for that matter, I mean, this has everything to sign up for. Since this implementation, we've noticed some very considerable, noticeable improvements and changes. The reduction of paperwork, the minimization of human intervention in terms of resolving conflicts and issues and so on and so forth. It's still early days, if I can be very open about that when it comes to our industry. We've experienced some teething issues, which to a very large extent has been received well, and the resolution processes, has been very smooth. We expect this to continue and to even improve going forward as we embed ourselves in publican AI and then ensuring that the full benefit will be realized by industry players. So I think the future has all the good things to throw at us. We will continue to embrace this and obviously look at the more efficient way of transacting at the ports eventually. One very important thing, Joachim, I would like to add is that this should be seen as a business tool rather than just a revenue mobilization tool. If that business-centric, customer-centric approach is applied to it, the end benefits, far outweighs the revenues which come, because we're looking long-term, not just short-lived, short-term, revenues mobilized, exceeding targets every now and again. So I would say, to answer your question, it's been good, it's been promising, to say the least, and I think the future looks brighter for anyone who aspires to be delving and using this going forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much, uh, Andrew. And I think it's just heartwarming to hear the industry praise GRA on the implementation of such a good system. It looks like the system is good. But Rachel, I'll come to you on our second segment on risk governance and legal considerations. In your earlier comment, you mentioned garbage in, garbage out. The AI is modeled around data. Without data, there's nothing the AI can do. Now, there are issues around data biases. If the system does not use the right data, then taxpayers may be unfairly assessed in terms of valuation. So let me give you an example. Currently in the revenue administration, customs law, if we are not using the transaction value and we have to use the other methods of valuation, there's a period gap for considering information or transactions. Usually, you have to use the most recent transactions up to 3 months. Now, there's a possibility, it's a system that if it's not modeled well, then it can look at transactions beyond the 3 months where the economic factors may be different from the reality as we speak now. So as a technology uh, uh, consultant, how should AI tools be designed, trained, monitored to minimize the risk of bias and ensure fair, reliable outcomes in custom valuation?
All right, thank you very much, Joachim. To your question on bias, right? It's something that we as human beings face. Naturally, human beings are biased. I mean, one person may prefer the color blue to the color red. And similarly with AI systems, the bias comes in first with the data set that is being trained on, right? Just as, let's say, a baby comes into this world, the baby has to learn how to crawl, learn how to walk, learn how to run through practice, right? Consistently practicing. AI also needs to be trained on data to be able to identify patterns and then predict outcomes, right? And if, let's say, you train a child on 3 colors, red, yellow, blue, and then the child goes and sees orange, but does not know how, like the name for orange or what it is, the child will now be looking at you like, daddy or mommy, what is this color, right? In the instance of publican AI, it's going to flag an error. So imagine the publican AI data set does not include countries like perhaps, let's say, Europe, and then goods come in from Europe. It's going to flag an error because perhaps the value or transaction value may not fall within the limited range, right? So it's important that the data that the publican AI is trained on is broad enough and balanced enough to reflect the large volumes and the different classifications of imports that come in, and also continuous monitoring. It's important that this technology is continuously monitored to be able to identify if there's instances of false positives, false negatives, to make improvements on it, right? We already have technologies like Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And I mean, in Deloitte, you'll be there and you get a message that says, oh, we are making an update on your software. So your computer will restart, right? Similarly, with AI systems, you need to constantly have oversight of it and monitor the outputs of it so that you can improve on it. So definitely there is an instance of bias, but it can be controlled through the data that is trained on and continuous monitoring. So, and also AI must be explainable and transparent. So example, if let's say somebody's importing mobile phones into a country, maybe iPhone 17, and then the publican AI knows that perhaps in dollars, the range for this phone is, let's say, 200 USD to 500 USD, just an example. But then the AI flags it as an error because this import in particular comes at below that range, 200 USD, and it just flags it as high risk. Without any explanation, it makes it difficult to investigate further. Right. So the explanation that will give that, okay, it's flagged as high risk because the transaction value falls below the expected range, now gives the customs officer more information to work with to now go and request for evidence or further documentation from the importer. So transparency and explainability and continuous monitoring and also the data that is trained on can help control or resolve the issue of biases that may arise with the publican AI.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. Peter, I'll come to you from the revenue side. Since the implementation of publican AI, I believe that today's webinar has provided a lot of clarity about it. Some people thought that publican AI is actually doing the evaluation with no human intervention and all that. I think now we have understood that it's only make recommendations. It does the review, that assessment, it make the recommendations to evaluation officer to aid in the decision making. Richard, in his delivery, has mentioned issues around transparency and accountability. And of course, interacting with a lot of importers, supporting importers with valuation disputes and all that. One of the main issues they have raised is around transparency. They don't understand the basis for a step-up valuation. So, for example, I had a client that, let's say last week, they brought an item, same quantity, same description, same volume. Let's say $100,000. That was what was assessed. The next week, still, I'm talking about evaluation within the implementation of publican AI. The next week, that same importer brings similar consignments and its value has doubled. Now, if you look at the history on icons, for example, you don't really get a lot of explanation as to why a particular import value has increased or changed. You don't really get it. You only see the asset value is this. And then you'll be directed to go through the appeal process to get a resolution. And you agree with me, importers don't have a lot of time to exhaust all the processes. Sometimes they may end up incurring additional costs and all that. So I want to hear from you, Peter, from GI perspective, what transparency accountability measures are in place to ensure importers understand the basis of valuation decisions?
Thank you very much. In terms of transparency, I would say it's in two folds. Okay. The transparency is firstly for the AI to customs, because like we all understand now, the AI is just a risk management tool. It's here to help us do our work. So when it gives us the information, we apply the valuation rules and make the decision on it. So in terms of transparency, when I say it's in two folds, I mean, in terms of AI transparency to customs, first of all, it has to be explainable. Whenever it flags an item, it gives us a reason why it has flagged that item. For example, the system flags it because the value is $300. And historically, the person has been declaring $800. It flags and gives you a reason why it flags. So every time the system flags a consignment, it gives a reason. It's not always on value. There are times it's on origin. At times it's on the description. At times it is on the weight. So in terms of transparency, that is one aspect. It is also auditable. Okay. Every decision that the AI takes has a trail in terms of our work too. So if it gives all the information to the officer and the officer decides not to go by the information of the AI, he can override that decision and put in his remarks as to why he or she did not make that decision. And lastly, in terms of that transparency to us, it also has the human in the loop, just as I said. We make the decision. AI gives us the information, and then we make the final decision based on the customs rules. In terms of the second aspect of the transparency, that is for customs to the importers or to our custom clearing agents. We work with rules as per the LI that emboldens customs or that funds customs. When customs doubts your value, the burden of proof is on you, the importer, to prove. And just as Martin was giving his presentation, after assessment has been made, and the assessment comes back to the importer. He has the chance to go through. If he or she is not satisfied, he can object, and then he is invited to present his documents. That is as transparent as we can be, because if you have nothing to hide, we do not see why you should have an issue providing your documents. And with examples of publicans, just like the example we gave, as in an importer bringing in a goods, and then in 2 weeks' time or some months' time, the value increase. Just as you said, the AI is learning. Okay, so that is the process. But when it is flagged, the importer can come and appeal. And I'm sure when he comes and appeals and presents his documents, customs will accept and we will do the right thing. So in terms of transparency, the system is very transparent, both to us and also to the importers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I can personally attest to the appeal process and the need for importers to have their documentations right. I believe that the system to some extent is fair. So if you have all the documentation right, you can make a successful appeal to the tax authority. So Gideon, I'll come to you.
Yeah.
From the conversation so far, it looks like we cannot look at customs as just mere part of logistical processes of an entity. We can look at it from that perspective. We have to look at it from a broad level risk discussion. So as businesses embrace the implementation of AI, how will you advise them in terms of board level risk discussion concerning the whole custom processes?
Okay, this is also a very relevant question. So very often you talk to businesses and they can tell you that we have our cyber risk. They can assess it. We have a cash flow risk, profitability risk, etc. But this is also a very important part, which can even affect the whole business. For me, it should even form part of your business continuity risk. I know a lot of entities have been doing business continuity risk assessment, etc. But if your goods are held up or they are stuck at the port for some misclassification or issue at the port, you're not able to clear, your whole manufacturing process can come to a stop, especially now when we have companies doing just-in-time processing and manufacturing, etc. So it is something that the board itself, as I've mentioned, should have an oversight on, and making sure that the supply chain resilience, when you're measuring it, when you're doing it, you look at the customs issue as well. Looking at high risk areas, especially for related party transactions. Have you looked at it in terms of your document that you have? Do you have oversight or ownership of the documents? Or have you given it to the agent so that 3 years later GRA comes, it is with you? It is with your agents and you do not have access to it, or possibly you might have changed agents somewhere along the way and you do not have it. And these are very relevant issues that we continue seeing in the market. Another one, for example, concerning documentation or risk over it is the fact that somewhere along the line, a company changes its ERP. They changed their software, but while they were changing it, they didn't do a proper backup. And so GRA comes to do an audit, and the documentation is totally non-existent, or you are not able to explain fully why you did certain things, the commercial invoice supporting it, the contractual invoices supporting it. And once you have this, it's a whole big exposure to you. You might not have thought of it, but then the penalties, anybody who is aware, especially with a GRA customs audit, the penalties are very, very punitive and it can be exceedingly high, which instantly can hit your cash flow. You might have sold the product in the market, all right, but because of the post-clearance audits that GRA is coming to do, you've already declared profits, you remitted the profits to your head office, but GRA has come back 4 years later. They found some misclassification issues, they found some errors, you don't have the proper documentation to support whatever you did. And because of that, you are going to pay a huge amount of penalties. So really, you cannot have a blind sight over this. You have to put all into this. Your business continuity plans has to include some sort of customs assessment. If you have high valued customs importation that you're doing, you should have oversight of it. If we come today and say, what are your 5 high-valued items that you have? Can you show us? Can you take a look at it? And then what are the risks around it? Lastly, I want to touch, especially for entities in the mining, petroleum, upstream sector. Very often, when you talk to them, they say, "Oh, I have an exemption. I don't have problems. I've paid my processing fees. I'm fine." But these exemptions come with some compliance obligations. If you are not keeping these compliance obligations, a GRA comes to do another, you have a big problem. And I've seen instances where even though the companies are providing services or they are selling to mining companies with exemptions, because they haven't kept the compliance obligations, they've been assessed on tax. You have the warehouse, the logistics manager sees that, oh, although this came from mining company A with some exemptions, another company has come and they want me to sell this particular goods to them. I think I can do some exchange and sell it to them and then later on replace it. And this is something that we talk about, the alignment between what the logistics guys are doing, what the finance team is doing, and what the customs guys are doing. If there is not an alignment or an agreement, the logistics guy would have done the right in business commercially, but it doesn't align with the conditions under which you were given by the revenue authority. And that alone is an exposure. So there is a need sometimes to even have training for all of these things and making sure that the risk of customs is not overlooked at all.
Thank you, Gideon. That is quite elaborate. I honestly didn't expect to give all the advice on the webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I
These are
believe
very
Andrew is happy with
practical.
the advice, but
It's not that we're able to have customers in the
all right,
market. Yeah.
yeah. But Andrew, I'll come to you, Andrew. The conversation so far, the AI is trained on data. I know, for example, you are in the mining sector, quite a complex industry. Beyond the general custom rules, there are specific fiscal rules that apply in your sector. The typical one, you have the mining lease issue that need to be trained on. There are other legislation or agreement that specifically regulates the mining sector. So in the definition of data set for the AI model to work on, there's definitely going to be some risks around how the model is designed so that it can also, learn the specific nature of specific industries. So it feed into the overall modeling itself. So as an importer who had been, of course, in your earlier comment, you said so far the system is good, but from a governance perspective, what policies, controls, and documentation should be in place to ensure fairness to manage risks and support compliance for importers?
Thanks a lot, Joachim. Very, very valid question. And coming from downstream mining sector base, high risk, potential industry. There are quite a few drivers which would obviously promote confidence in this system, in this public and AI system. And I can actually go through a host of them, but typically, what borders around this discussion to also ensure that from a consistency, point of view, from a risk management point of view, from a governance point of view, I think the data sets, the data drive, or the data sets which drive the learning of the AI is critical. We have a lot of learning from ICOMS, how challenging it was from the beginning, the learnings from it, all that information, I think, should be used to the advantage of public and AI. These should drive to the very core areas around policies. You mentioned controls, documentation. Policies should be business driven. If you ask me, if customs, GRE, if our partners are aligned to the various industry roles and the positions that we play into the industries, typically in my instance and the area I'm coming from, mining, it makes it more aligned towards ensuring that whatever data is being collected, it's not generic. We should try and train this tool to start thinking generically, to dealing with more specifics as best as possible to ensure that the level of accuracy, brings about that outcome that we want. That is how I believe fairness will be achieved. We need to have the resources available to ensure that these data are trial and tested to ensure that it's achieving the right points that we want. Around controls, why don't we start looking at things like advanced risk management engines? And maybe Richard, being the expert around that area, can speak more towards that. The dealing with products which are more high risk than others, and then treating those products and goods along the lines of ensuring the AI classifies them accordingly, so that the length of time that you spend dealing with those products are not as cumbersome and as tedious as dealing with general products and goods. Trader compliance scoring. Can't we build this into that? Traders can obviously, with high level of compliance and governance structure, be scored very high so that this tool will be able to rate them in such a way that it makes it easier for customers to take decisions around the rates that they are applying, because it's all around data, and this data is obviously available to our customs and the GRE. And then the post-clearance audit capabilities. This should be rolled out very well to ensure that there is no repetition. I know there's been the aspect of appeal, and a lot of the times we've used the appeal section to comfort some of the areas which I'll call gaps, which potentially most AI tools bring. I treat, from an industry perspective, I treat appeal as return jobs from a vehicle servicing workshop. If we can actually limit the level of appeals to ensuring that the upfront we get it first, for the first time right, and score the various industry players or governance players like GRA and customs around how many appeals are coming from a particular transaction, then I will measure success, according to that rating. Those KPIs should be well structured in ensuring that the appeal mechanisms are, one, reduced, and if at all possible, would obviously end up with the outcomes that is fair to both parties. So I believe from a governance point of view, if we are applying some of these structures in place, it would increase tremendously the confidence the market has in embracing this AI fully. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew. That is very practical. So we'll go to the final leg of our panel discussion. Due to time, I will just take brief advice from all our panelists. So Peter, I'll start with you. If you can do that with me within a minute, I'll be grateful. So I want your advice to importers that as we embrace to adopt, we already adopted AI, what advice do you have for importers to ensure that they maximize the benefits of these AI-enabled processes?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, to all traders and importers, AI is good news for compliant traders. And here's how to benefit from it. Firstly, AI rewards consistency. So they should try to be as consistent as possible. Here's a tip for them. They should keep their valuation methods, the HS codes, the product description should be clear. Okay, and then they shouldn't try to shortchange the system. Clean data means faster clearance. Okay, so AI checks your historical declarations, tax data, inspection history, and all those things. So they should submit complete and accurate invoices with detailed description. The Incoterms should be stated on them, insurance. The cleaner your data is, the less likely you are to be delayed. And then they should not fear scrutiny. Okay, AI will cross-check your declared value with the market price. Okay, so if you have nothing to hide, they should not be scared of it. They should rather be prepared for it. And then Lastly, I also like to tell them to also take advantage of advanced ruling, especially for those with high bulk products and new products. AI loves pre-validated data. With the benefit of advanced ruling, they can take advantage of that and clearance will be faster. AI is here to stay. So it's going to also make our work very, very easy and their work also easy. And in both ways, we are all going to benefit more revenue to develop the country and their businesses will also improve. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And I like the point about clear description. We've had clients that their description is the product code of the item that is being imported. Who knows about the product code? So make the work of the customer officer a bit more difficult in identifying whether we are properly classified the product. So Peter, thanks for emphasizing on that. It's a good advice for all importers to consider. Gideon, I'll take your final comment on your advice to CEOs, CFOs. If you were to advise them today, what three custom risks do you think they should consider, regardless of their industry? General three custom risks they should consider going into the future.
Okay, I'll make it very short. And I think the one of the high risk areas we see are related party transactions. Have a good oversight or view of that and make sure that there is aligned between what customs declares and then what your transfer pricing team may be sitting in the head office somewhere are also declaring. The second point is that documentation is very, very important. You might have a good story, but if your documentation is not good or available or accurate, you have a big problem. Making sure that 2, 3 years down the line, that documentation that you have will still tell the good story of what happened when the clearance was done earlier. If you're able to do this, I think you have your documentation accurately done. I think you're on the right path. The last part I mentioned earlier is the exemptions. We keep on seeing a lot of entities saying they're exempt, and then issues keep on coming back. It's good advantage to have a clear oversight of what your exemptions regime is like and what the conditions are given for that, and making sure that you apply by it. And lastly, let's have a good training. Train your teams. Let them talk together. Let the supply chain team be talking to the logistics. Let them be talking to the finance and the tax compliance team, and making sure that there's an alignment throughout. You're all doing the same thing, and none of these things is going to drop the ball and then give you customs liability later on. I think these are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Gideon, for your comments. Richard, I'll take your final bite on this. We've heard you discuss the AI model, how it runs, potential risks, and all that. Now, there's a lot of emphasis on businesses to keep documentation, to keep track of their underlying data and all that. So, as a technology expert, to what extent can successful AI adoption or deployment by businesses help them cope with custom risk? What technology advice can you give them? Let me give you an example, and which had been said earlier. In most cases, businesses tend to leave custom-related data to their agents, and they find it very difficult to track where the data sits, how they can even retrieve the data. Years down the line, in a customs audit, they are unable to get access to the data. And the rule is evidence. If you don't have it, we didn't do it. So from a technical perspective, what advice and what tools would you recommend that companies should do to enhance their compliance?
Okay, thank you very much, Joachim. I would not necessarily focus on a tool, but I would say that we also have to continuously learn and engage in education and training, even as importers and organizations, to be able to understand what is happening at the port, what technology they are using, and not just leave everything to the agents to just handle it. It's important that we learn and understand how things are working. It's also important to, engage in AI literacy trainings, because now AI technology is being used in and everywhere. So it's important that each and every organization and individuals engage in AI literacy and education and training. So that's one of the advices I give. And with regards to customs on organizations like GRA that are making use of the tool, I would say that continuous monitoring is key to improve upon these systems, and also perhaps having an independent body within the organization that has oversight to review these systems would be key, and even taking on a third party such as ourselves to come and review these models and the data quality would also help improve trust and assurance to reporters. So that's the little I have. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good advice to importers. So Andrew, we have an advice. I hope it's quite thorough. Maybe I'll bring an invoice for the various advice I received this morning. But you are the importer. The system, as we know, and as I mentioned earlier, in the new customs bill, it has been codified. So it means that it has come to stay. And as importers, you just have to embrace yourself to live with it. But for every system, people need support around its usage when they have issues and all that, what support that they need. So I just want to take your view on what support you need from customs when valuation disagreement arises and what measures will help foster greater confidence in dispute resolution processes.
Thank you, Joachim. We can discuss the invoicing bits, later on. But yeah, very insightful moment on this panel. So we need a lot of support. I mean, we being obviously the engine behind the revenue, which comes into the government stream. Obviously, our partners being GRA, being customs, being any of the government agencies, is always welcome. The data sets, we will never stop dwelling on that because obviously that is where a lot of the decisions are based. I would personally, from the industry I'm coming from, continue to appeal with customs to take the interest to understanding, the basis, for some of the products and goods which come through our various shores and borders. This helps with setting our biases towards facts instead of, either basing assessment on either discretion or arbitrary assessment. That will really help. With my few and minimum interactions with customs around some of the appeal processes, these have come out where the interest to understand, how industry players, play within the markets, what even the products actually go out there to do on the field, helps and goes a long way to ensuring that assessments are done as accurately as possible. And lastly, Joachim, this is not new. I mean, there's a lot of countries who are already implementing AI in customs clearing process and border handling issues. I think we must just learn from the experience flaws from developed nations, developed entities, and how they've done it going forward. And AI being a good tool, every good tool has its own downsides. Let's try and limit the downsides. Let's try and then obviously promote the upsides for the betterment of to Peter's point, Ghana, and also for the industry in which we all represent and ascribe in. Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for that. Oleb, if you can hear me, we will take a minute of your advice to the revenue to importers as well.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
All right, a couple of things, man. So one thing that we must do as a matter of course as an owner of this particular function is anticipate the audit. And how do I anticipate an audit? Gideon spoke about related parties. With related parties, limited risk distributors, you know that at the end of the financial year, you need to look at your pricing to make sure that the local entity achieves the right operating margin. That impacts your price point at which you import the goods. If you change the price point, you know that the AI tool is going to pick it up. Upfront, you can anticipate that something is coming, right? If you negotiate a good discount from your supplier, that price point is going to change. So finance, supply chain team, sales team, logistics team, those are your friends who are going to educate you around business and what's likely to come. Legal is also one department that you have to create solid relationships with. And these 5 touch points are going to help you anticipate the change. That's the one thing. The second thing is you must document and I'm talking about document and documentation. So you need to document end-to-end your commercial transaction so that you understand it in and out, in anticipation of a question from the AI tool. 1. 2, the documentation, we spoke about it at length. The one final one that we spoke about recently is the advanced ruling, where you know that there is an endemic part of the commercial transaction, like a commission and everything else, where you know that the customs authority is going to come with questions. Go forward, ask for a ruling that gives you certainty in terms of how they're going to treat that transaction going forward. Those are the 3 points. And then the final one, if you are new in an environment, if you are a new tax manager, you've got a lot of work to do. All of these things that we're talking about today is the homework for you. Make sure that this framework is in place so that you anticipate and ready for an audit to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Oleb, and that's quite elaborate and precise advice for all businesses. So at this juncture, we will go into our Q&A session. The session is in 2 parts, as I mentioned earlier. We would read some of the questions in the Q&A chat box. But if you're a participant and you want to ask your question directly, we'll give you the opportunity. You can raise your hand and we'll allow you to speak as well. Yeah, so I think we can take both concurrently. If you have a question, do you have anybody raise their hand for a question?
Hello.
Hello,
Good.
Rhoda?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Rhoda.
First of all, thank you to the panel for all the input that you gave. Now, my question is to the customs team. I understand the publican AI hasn't been up for so long a time, but have they been able to put together, say, some information to be able to analyze how it's been working? And for those such data, would they be made public for people to know the outcome of its operation over the past few months since it's been active?
Okay, so Peter or Martin, either of you can respond.
Okay, let me respond to this.
Okay.
He's asking of feedback, as in whether we have assessed the system to give a feedback.
Yes.
We have not done that yet. We just rolled it out in February. I think that was partially, it rolled out fully from June, July going. So we need a little bit of time gap to be able to make meaningful analysis. Okay, so for now, we have not. But the publican itself is an AI. It is here to learn. Okay, it is here to learn. So is what we feed it that is virtually going to be the ultimate goal. So it's here to learn, but we need some time to gather enough data to make the analysis. So the answer to a question, not yet, but there's always audit. So we are still compiling the data, and we will do that and share with the public in due time. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Do you have any other hand raised? Okay, so whilst we wait for hands to raise, Peter, there's a...
Hello, Joachim. We
Yes.
have Maxwell's hand up.
Okay, Maxwell, please go ahead.
Maxwell, if you can hear us, you can speak, please. Okay,
So maybe once we wait for Maxwell to fix his microphone issues. So Peter, Martin, there's question around the timeline for the appeal process, and does it not prolong to affect cargo to incur demurrages? We know at the port, the 3 days are quite short. You have about 7 days or so to ensure you clear your goods, pay the duties and clear your goods. If you don't do that within these days, you begin to incur additional cost, stay warehousing rent, and the bigger one usually around demurrages. So I think people want to understand the timeline for the appeal process.
And so, with the appeal process, I think as I said earlier on, the issue has to do with your evidence. And so, once you are able to provide the evidence we need, so now the benefit is on the importer or the trader to prove to us that indeed the value that they declared is the correct one. And so once you are able to prove to us and we verify that indeed that is your value, we quickly accept and then we process it for you to continue the process.
And also, just to add to that, in the cases of demurrage that he's talking about, the system is programmed in such a way that we have pre-arrival. So if you've taken advantage of the pre-arrival system, that you can submit your documents 3 months ahead of time before the shipment even comes in. You can solve all these processes before the shipment even comes in. So in terms of demurrage, we will advise the importers to take advantage of the pre-arrival system, okay, so that cases of demurrages are reduced at the port. If you take advantage of them, all these issues will be solved. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Martin and Peter. So I think there's a question around deployment of similar AI models in other custom jurisdictions. It's a general question. If you have an idea, Gideon, Oleb, Peter, if you have an idea, you can share your views around it and how that has impacted on customs assessment.
So I'll come in. During my presentation, I mentioned that East Africa went as a trade bloc to China to go and do this, and then implemented an IT risk engine to be able to assess the fluctuation between the price points on importation. So definitely something to that effect. In the South, I remember back in the day when I was with the customs authorities, we implemented a tool called IT connectivity. And what this tool does is it links the export to an import through what they call a unique consignment reference number. I'll give you an example. I'm exporting a product from Zambia into Ghana. When I export it from Zambia, I need to add a unique consignment reference number that I share with my importer. Importer punches the unique consignment reference number into their import document when they file it with the GRA, and they are able to verify that the price and the value that I declared on export is the same as the one they're declaring on import. So that is one way in which the technology was used to try and make sure that the price is as fair as possible. But I'm aware that other countries across the continent are adopting similar type of exercises.
Okay. Thank you, Oleb, for your response. So Peter and Martin, there's a kind of a scenario that is created in the chat box. So it's around the concept of when we say undervaluation. So we give a scenario that let's assume you imported an item, and the item cost you, let's say, 100 cedis, which it is supported with genuine commercial invoice payment record. But then the AI benchmark suggests, let's say, 200 cedis as a benchmark. Then later, in the later shipment, you get the item at 50 cedis, which reflect market conditions at the time, because the market is not stable, all that. So Of course, we all understand under WTO valuation framework, transaction is based, and as we have learned today, on price actually paid. So the question is, will it not therefore be more appropriate for the AI to be geared towards following the money by verifying whether payments to the supplier align with the declared custom value? So that if an importer declares 100 cedis, but 200 cedis ultimately accrues to the seller, there's clearly a legitimate undervaluation concern. Then also where the AI results in a higher assessment pending appeal, what safeguards exist to ensure compliant importers do not have duties, VAT and working capital unnecessarily tied? That is the scenario so it's 2 in 1. How do we determine undervaluation? Is it based on the suggested commercial value by the AI, even where legitimate documentations are provided that suggests a lower value, which does not necessarily mean undervaluation? And then the issue of cross-referencing for the same importer, subsequent imports, the price of that item has reduced. Will you also benchmark it back to maybe the 100 that was previously declared or the 200 suggested value? And whether, it's not more prudent to wait for when what actually is paid to the supplier to determine the actual value as against maybe relying on the suggested market value. So Peter, Martin, if you can take a bite on it. And the whole risk issues around if higher values are assessed. Of course, we know the implications. Demorages can appear. I think it ties into the timeline question we asked earlier. And that if it's not resolved within a reasonable time and you have to pay and clear the goods, you're likely to going to tie up your working capital. So what measures are in there for importers?
Okay, so first of all, I would like to start by saying that the publican AI is not the only tool we use. So like I stated earlier on, when we talk about under invoicing, like when you mentioned under invoicing, it is not only publican that we use. We have other tools as well. So let's not create the impression that it is only publican that we are using. We have our reference price list, we have our TPD, and we have other tools. And so we use all these. And so once we look at input from all this, the valuation officer looks at all these 3 tools and then make a determination. And so it's not as if once publican gives a value, it is cast in stone and that it cannot be changed or it cannot be reduced. Let's also bear in mind that publican and the other tools are just used to guide the officer. So at the end of the day, it is the officer who ultimately applies the value. Yes. So that's the first part. The second part about I think the second part is about the timelines. Or moderator.
Yeah, I mean it ties into the timeline, but it's more of an appeal. So where higher values are assessed and you appeal, if the appeal process not concluded early, and maybe the importer need to pay, the concern is around working capital hold up. They may have to pay more, which will affect their overall business existence. So what measures are in place or can be suggested to minimize some of these risks for importers?
Okay, so like my colleague Peter said earlier on, we have to take advantage of the pre-clearance process. And so that process is once you have your, I think, shipping bill of lading and your invoice, you can put in a declaration pending the arrival of the goods. So let's say your goods has not arrived, you can put in the declaration, and then whatever process that you have to go through in respect of appeal, if you have to appeal, I think you would have enough time to do everything before the container arrives. So the first thing is that please take advantage of the pre-clearance stage. And then the other thing too is that, like I said earlier on, the burden of proof is on the importer. And so once the duty is high and you provide evidence, like Oleb said, with the export declaration, in my remarks, I mentioned the export declaration. And so once you are able to provide a document to show that indeed that is the actual price you paid, I think your appeal process is smooth and fast. So you are treated quickly if you have all the documents it takes. If you're able to prove to us that indeed that is the amount you paid, your appeal is speeded up for you, and then you are able to take your container from the port without any demurrage or penalty of a stop. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I think that's a very good advice, and I will also add my voice to that advice. Don't wait until it's too late, because the cost of that waiting can be very significant in some contexts. I think there are some questions around reliability of the database, since they have been coming around. Now the data is not learning. To what extent do we have significant data that the system is feeding on to give the output that it is giving? But I believe the comfort is that, as we have been told, it's just an advisory tool to the evaluation officer in making their decision on this. Still, the other approaches of valuation, as we have learned today, have not changed. So we need to take advantage of it as well. All right. Do we have anybody's hand up for a question? I think. So maybe that will be our last question. Does publican apply to exports? Also, does it apply to bonded warehouse goods when they are ex warehouse? If publican verifies my import for me to settle all obligations during an audit, would GRA still audit same? So, Peter, I believe the question come back to you and Martin. If publican has done the evaluation and is accepted, would GRA still audit me during post-clearance audit?
Sure.
So, Caroline, I'll come to you. You ask the last question. Peter, go ahead.
Sure. It be audited. After the post-clearance audit, it is mandatory. It is just it's a check on the first process that has already happened. So it has to, the PCA audit is also part of the data that is also going to be fed to the publican. So if publican, your system passes through the publican AI, sure, PCA will also audit to make sure that everything is in order. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Carol, I will take last question from you.
Okay. Good morning, team. So thanks for a very good presentation. But my question is around timelines. So it goes to the customs team. I want to know if they have timelines on how long evaluation should sit with an officer. Because you do this, and sometimes it takes like 3 days, 4 days. But like they are saying, we should do pre-clearance. And it will take them forever when you ship something from South Africa, let's say by 7 days, the shipment is here. So if an officer is taking 3 to 4 days to do just valuation for you, it becomes a problem. So you may not meet that deadline before the shipment arrives. So I want to know if they have a way of checking how long a file sits with an officer for it to be worked on, or if there are KPIs for them to be checking them. Otherwise, I see it to be it's open to the officers' idea to work on this or not. Because if your file has a lot of items on it, which means the officer may put it somewhere and just work on the others, which is a bit of a problem. Because I always have that issue because I have a long list of items in one container. And it's taking me like 4 days to get evaluation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Peter, just a quick response. We are out of time.
All right. I actually appreciate her concerns. And we don't have timelines, but ideally, any declaration that you put in is not supposed to take more than a day. Okay, there are certain reasons that some declarations take longer. Just in her case, she said it's a longer line item. If you have about 400 to 600 line items, it takes longer time for an officer to do the classification to make sure the HS codes are all in order, and also with the valuation. Okay, and also at times with our system, the bandwidth that ICOMS gives us, longer line items tend to gunk up the system and slow the system a little. But it should not take more than 3 days. Officers have KPIs, and whenever we go to work, we are supposed to work and clear our pool, and that is what is actually done. There are times that works are queried, okay? Works are queried and then they are not responded to. They also delay works. If a work is queried for information and the response is not coming, that one you can't say is the officer that is delaying your work. Okay, so as for the timelines, we ideally work to make sure that in the 8-hour period that we are there, every officer clears the pool. So generally, work is not supposed to take more than a day, 24 hours at valuation. The worst time is roughly 3 days. So if your work delays, then I think you can take advantage and call the help desk at CTSB. You call them, you give them the declaration number. It will be escalated and it will be solved for you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm so sorry, Carol. I know you have a follow-up. Maybe 30 seconds follow-up.
No, Joachim, it's fine. So far as we
Thank
are
you.
short of time, so
All
we
right.
just
Thank you
give
very much.
this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, thanks so much for your time. Deloitte, we provide training opportunities for clients, various players in the industry. So next week, 26th to 27th, we'll have our tax compliance and audit readiness program, which will be at the Palms Eagles Airport. It's a two-day program. We encourage participants who will be interested in this training to kindly register and join the team next week. On this note, I want to say thank you to our panel members, Oleb, Martin, Peter, Andrew, Gideon, and Richard for your time this morning. And to all our participants, thanks so much for joining. That will be all from us this morning. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Lee? Let's get started.
On this slide, you can see that we are still missing a few
So we
numbers.
get it done by Friday.
Can you hear me?
We can't hear you. We have to do
Is
that.
it able to handle that? That's it. Right. I'm just a little bit concerned.
Don't worry, we'll get there.
Have you heard the news?
This morning, a groundbreaking initiative has officially been launched
This is going to change a lot.
This is a very important step.
towards a sustainable future.
You never know how far one idea will go and who it will impact. Like her family, their community, our planet. At Deloitte, we measure ideas by the impact they'll have. Because why work so hard to find solutions if it doesn't make a difference in people's lives? Why connect, or innovate, or engineer anything if not to make an impact that actually matters? No matter who you are, where you are, or where you're going, Deloitte is there, and there, and even there. We are dedicated to helping people and organizations solve problems, to know faster, to grow farther, to go from red to black, to green, creating impact where it matters most.